With Cory here, we're talking about 1994. Kingsmen go 10-1, 7-0 in the Northern Indiana Conference. With once again, been a great job defensively. Cory, your defense gives up, didn't give up double-digit points until the last game of the season. Included in there, finished the regular season with 3 consecutive shutouts, and up with 5 shutouts on the season. I tell you what. This defense is pretty special in 1994.
Well, yeah, they're physical. Those guys could play the game. I mean, you know, they bought into great team football, and you know, Dicus gets banged up late in that season, and can't finish the rest of the season. And he's a guy that's playing linebacker for us, and also our leading rusher playing running back as well, and a big loss. And again, there's back to the luck part of it, trying to stay healthy in that, and that's part of the game. And those guys made a heck of a run again, but came up a little bit short.
How did the 1994 team prepare for what was going to happen the next year? Of course, next year in '95, team goes on to win the first of the 3 state championships. What did the '94 group? What did the kids learn in 1994 that catapulted them to success in 1995?
Well, I mean, we had some great players in the team that we lost. You know, Andy Dreisbach, you know, on that defense. You know, we've already talked about Rosenthal and McCullough and those guys. Greg Dicus, you know, Jr. What a great dynamic player. They played hard, they practiced hard, they worked, they prepared hard. But it was a tough run that, you know, we hadn't won a sectional title now. I mean, we've had a little bit of a drought. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the record, the team records in that span, it's unbelievable. But to not win a sectional game, that was a tough one. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, we graduated a lot of great guys that year, and we come back in the 1995 season and reloading and from the year before, and what they pulled off was nothing short of spectacular.
Well, you mentioned that it was 3 years in a row that you hadn't won a sectional, so that's really a whole group of kids. I mean, where were they at emotionally with this whole thing? I know where the coaching staff was.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, we were all standing at the Bittersweet Bridge. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? One of those deals. You know what I mean? Wondering if it's deep enough and cold enough, but apparently it wasn't. So we went back and we started coaching. So no, it's what those guys did. They went back to work, just like you always do, and you know, follow the system, follow the program, follow the blueprint, and do all the things you can do to control what you can control. And that's exactly what those guys did. Because every year you get a new group of seniors and a new group of leaders, and it turns into their team. And it's amazing what happens when guys get a chance to lead, how they respond to that, both good and bad. And we've been very, very fortunate to have a lot of good.
All right, moving on to 1995. Wow.
Here we go.
My, oh my. What a this one, there's so many things that I remember about this. I remember, first of all, doing the state championship game, but I remember this, the game against Portage.
Yeah.
Oh man, I mean that is enough drama right there. As a matter of fact, all these games, there's a 2 or 3 stretch games against Portage, and
yeah, we can go the whole playoff run. Every one of those games has a little bit of a story in it.
All right, let's do that.
Let's go.
Right, so, you know, first of all, you once again, another great defensive group. Gave up 13 early on the road at Elkhart Central, but then you run into a stretch where you guys just really kind of take care of business. Oops. In this one, let me get the right page here. But I remember the games. You guys are experimenting. Lorraine from Ohio.
Admiral King. Yeah.
You know that was new on the schedule. So that was a new look, and
we had the all-time record for winnings. You know what I mean? Regular season wins and fireworks show, and I'm sure those guys probably thought, because this was back before the internet was very, very big or anything like that, and you know, what did we get ourselves into coming over here from Ohio to play Coach Kiesman's Kingsmen?
So games against Portage, Carmel, and then of course having to take on the legendary John D. Cooper in Evansville North in the state championship game. First of all, the Portage game.
Well, great
game.
team. Let's go back to Portage. The year before, Portage is the state runner-up and has about everybody back from that state runner-up team that very easily could have won it. So they're loaded. Great team, offensively, defensively. Coach Bazilla's team is outstanding. And I can remember, so naturally, the night of the game, or the first night of the game, I should say, we get out there and it's raining and it's pouring and it's wet and lightning's coming and we're in the locker rooms and we have Art Klinger who's a meteorologist and he's checking out what's going to take place and then what's going to take place the next day. So maybe we're a little lucky because we have that kind of information and what it's going to do that later that night and not. And you know, the guys are drenched and everything else, and they've had to ride their buses all the way over from Portage. And I can remember being in the locker room, and naturally, during the playoffs, there's other coaches always around. I remember Leroy Marsh and other coaches being around from the region, coming over to watch two teams play that, you know, have had great runs and you know, both teams. And what's going to take place? What's going to happen in this ball game? And you know, had to wait it out and ride it out, and after a while, they said, well, we need to postpone it and play it the next day. And, you know, naturally, we wanted to wear the same uniforms, and naturally they had to wear that wet uniforms and ride back on a school bus and then wash uniforms and get back on a school bus and come back over the next afternoon. And then naturally we knew the next afternoon they were calling for lake effect snow, and for people who don't know what lake effect snow, it can drop down in a hurry, and that's exactly what it did. And that game was a snow bowl game like no other. You couldn't see the lines; they were plowing them off, snow blowing off just every 10-yard line just to try to see where the field was, and it was a great game. I remember Jocelyn making big plays. There's Jocelyn Goodman, went on and played at Indiana. Great player as a safety, but also a heck of a weapon as a tight end as well. Made a big touchdown catch in the ball game as well. And no one was trying to field punts that game. The weather conditions were so bad they wouldn't even put guys back to field punts. Well, we put Nicky back there and fielded a punt, and Matt had a huge punt return on him that also helped break the game wide open. So those games, and Matty Heropoulos, I think he caught a 2-point conversion coming out of the back. I mean, it was just play after play like that, and we won a heck of a regional championship against a great team that was loaded, that was state runners-up the year before.
Chris tells the story about getting the IHSA involved, calling the state police. I've heard all those great stories. But I remember, because I broadcast this game, I remember distinctly trying to...
Were you there the first night and the second?
I was there the first night and the second night.
Okay.
And I'll never forget when the ball was going in the air and the guys were getting ready to take the punt, and it just hits the ground and it just goes plop. And It's like, where's the ball?
Exactly.
There was so much snow. I'd never seen conditions. So let me throw a hypothetical at you. You teach all year long on how to play the game. And this is one of those dynamics that there's no way in the world you can simulate playing this sport in this type of environment. It's physically impossible. So I want you to put on your coaching hat, and what do you talk to your kids? You may not have even played in this type of environment before.
Well,
what do you tell them?
You had, but you hadn't. Think about how many times as a little kid you went out in the backyard when it snowed and you played. And that's probably the beauty of the sport we play with your buddies. You call buddies up from the neighborhood and get together. You pile snow up and you're diving in drifts and everything else. And it was like being a little kid again, playing in the backyard. I mean, it was on the grass naturally, and the footing, and it was all a factor of what you're doing. And again, I mean, in a game like that, you had to play great run defense, and you had to be able to run the ball, and you had to be able to take care of the ball. And then naturally, we had a punt return that help flip the tides, like a lot of times on our championship teams, our special teams did.
Yeah, a pretty special quarterback in 1995 who can make a case for being able to withstand that coaching father-son dynamic. Let's talk about 1995 and this interesting story developing.
Well, I mean, Matt, first of all, a lot of people don't know this. He's a great student too. I mean, he knows the game. He's been around the game, next to probably one of the smartest coaches that ever coached this game. Coach Giesman, and he's been brought up with being part of that. And on top of that, he's an intelligent young man himself. He's also a valedictorian of the school. He is a heck of an athlete. He is long and lean and can throw the football. And probably more importantly than all that, he is a great leader. And the guys on that team love him and look up to him and follow him. And when you take a look at that team and those guys, he is definitely something special. Everybody has faith in him. Everybody knows something's going to happen, and usually something great did happen.
Chris tells the story about Matt having a very, very poor performance
In the jamboree.
He's got second thoughts about, is he the guy? But the coaching staff comes to Chris and say, listen, he's our guy.
Well, I remember sitting at Chris's house the day after the jamboree and at a staff meeting, and all of us were there, and Gee's saying, well, we may have to make a move here. I mean, Matt's not doing it, and naturally, we all say to Geese, this is his junior year, you know what I mean? No, he's our guy. I mean, and we see what he has. We see the leadership. We see the skill sets. And, there's some pressure, naturally, being the quarterback, and also then on top of it being the head coach's son and being the quarterback. And I understand where Chris was coming from. But again, I can remember the staff to a man all said, no, this is the guy that has to do it. This is the guy that's going to take us where we want to go. And Matt definitely did his senior year.
All right, so Carmel and Evansville North, you guys able to win that. And, of course, back to the winner's circle for the second time in school's history. Give us an idea. And for you, your first state championship as an assistant coach, and even that as a player, because your brother had won the other one. What was it like for you to win the state championship and play such a pivotal role in getting these guys ready to play? And what was it like waiting in line to get your blue ribbon and getting that ring and walking off the field, having won the state championship?
Well, just I can remember the journey, the ride, and working with those guys, and Jeff Rice's, Mike McBride's and Bo Sands and Billy Seymour's, and just great guys that could play the game. Jocelyn Goodman, just playmakers on that defensive side of the ball that they could bring it, and they would bring it early and often. And just the tightness and the bond of those guys, and the jubilation on the sideline. You know what I mean? When we knew towards the end of the ball game that we've actually pulled this thing off, and what it felt like was a special moment. I mean, besides what you feel like with the day you get married and the day your children are born, there's nothing like it. And being able to experience that with your dad and your brothers and your buddies and the men you looked up to and played for, you know what I mean? It was something special. And happy naturally, getting it, being a coach's son, and happy for Matt and his experience. I mean, it was great.
14-0.
Well,
wow.
Making that run. To pull that off, beating Carmel. You know what I mean? We had to knock them off, and to do that, run that table. Run the whole table and without a blemish is exceptional. And Carmel was loaded as well. And Coach Belden, he had a heck of a ball club. And then I can remember their game was played on a Saturday, the semi-state game. So our staff went down and watched Ben Davis play Evansville North and Deke Cooper and the guys. And I can remember taking a look at those. Deke, they out-athleted Ben Davis, Evansville North, and that's saying something. That's by far at that time. Ben Davis had the best athletes in the state, and what Evansville North was able to do against Coach Delahan's one of his great teams, that's saying something.
All right, let's take a pause.